Shalom, children. Our story begins today as everyone was preparing to go up to Jerusalem for the week-long feast of Sukkot. Yeshua told his taught ones that he would not be going up with them. Rather, he would go up separately. Meanwhile, at the temple, the religious leaders were searching for him, asking if anyone had seen him. The people began to discuss just who Yeshua was, but no one openly declared that they believed in him because they were afraid of the Pharisees. A few days into the Feast of Tabernacles, Yeshua was in the set-apart place and began teaching. The Pharisee leaders were amazed at the things he said. They asked out loud, "How does this man understand the writings? He hasn't been taught by us." Yeshua answered, "The message I give is not mine, but from the one who sent me." Then he added, "You do not know the one who sent me. I know him because I came from him." Well, this did not go down well with the Pharisee leaders at all. What Yeshua was telling them was that even though they taught the Torah, the prophets, and the writings, they did not know the Father and his ways. They were furious and wanted to seize him right there and then. But it wasn't the Father's timing that he should be arrested yet. The next day, whilst it was still early, Yeshua returned to the set-apart place. All the people came to him, and he sat down and began to teach. Suddenly, there was a commotion in the courtyard. The Pharisee leaders and the sages brought a woman over to Yeshua. They told him, "This woman has been caught spending time with another man who isn't her husband. The law of Moshe says to stone her. What do you think, Yeshua?" Now, do you think the Pharisee leaders really wanted to get his opinion on this matter? Or do you think that they wanted to learn something from him? No. They wanted to trick Yeshua into giving the wrong answer. That way, they would have a good reason to arrest him and stop him preaching. This certainly was a tricky situation. You see, the woman's accusers, that is, the Pharisees, had not quoted the law properly. In the book of Vayikra, it says, "If a man commits adultery with another man's wife, both the adulterer and the adulteress are to be put to death." So both the man and the woman were supposed to be brought before the judges. Yet the Pharisee leaders, who were doing the accusing, had only brought the woman to Yeshua. Where was the man? And where were the appointed judges? The Pharisees were not following the instructions according to Moshe, and were hoping Yeshua would make a judgment outside of the law, and in doing so bring judgment upon himself. Yeshua chose not to give a direct answer to their question. Instead, he spoke wisely from the Torah. It is written in the book of Devarim, when speaking of stoning an accused person, "The hands of the witness shall be the first against him to put him to death." This means the witnesses to the crime, and in our story today that is the Pharisees, they are the ones who need to throw the first stone at the guilty person. Yeshua said to them, "Whoever is without sin, cast the first stone." The men knew they had sinned against Adonai by plotting to murder Yeshua and by twisting the law of Adonai. And so each one of the accusers walked away without throwing one stone. Yeshua certainly turned their sneaky ways back onto them, didn't he? Do you think they've learned their lesson and will stop trying to trip Yeshua up now? On the last, that is the great day of the week of Sukkot, Yeshua went up to the set-apart place. Each morning during the 7 days of the feast, a special water ceremony was carried out by the high priest. In it, he would lead a large procession of people down from the temple area to the pool of Shiloah. Children, have you ever heard of the word stagnant? Well, stagnant describes a body of water that does not have any movement in it. Not much life exists in there either, and it usually smells pretty bad. The pool of Shiloah wasn't stagnant, rather it flowed with moving water, which is often referred to in the scriptures as living water. The Shiloah pool was very special to the children of Israel, as the water was once used to anoint the kings of Israel. The pool became known as the Well of Salvation. Once at the pool, the priest filled a vessel with the living water, then headed back to the inner court at the temple. There was lots of singing and rejoicing as the priest made his way over to the brazen altar and 2 basins which stood nearby. One of the basins was for wine offerings, and the other for water offerings. The priest raised his hands high up into the air and poured the living water into the basin for water offerings. Then the priest prayed for Elohim to pour out his blessings of water on them in the form of life-giving rain. Yeshua was in the set-apart place to see the last time that the water ceremony was carried out. The singing and praising would have been a sight to see. Imagine the astonishment of everyone when afterwards Yeshua stood up and announced in a very loud voice, "If any man thirsts, let him come to me and drink. He who believes in me, as the scripture has said, out of his heart will flow rivers of living water." I am reminded of the woman at Jacob's well. Do you remember? Yeshua had talked to her about water there too. He said, "Whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life." Many people had gathered for the final water ceremony. Some who heard him speak declared, "This is the prophet we have been waiting for." Others said, "This is the Messiah." But a few spoke up saying, "The Messiah doesn't come out of the Galilee. The scriptures say the Messiah will come from the village of Bethlehem." Children, they were all speaking truth. Many years before, Micha the prophet had said, "Bethlehem, from you will come forth the ruler of Israel." Those who had remembered the words of Micha must have thought that Yeshua was born and raised in the Galilee. But children, do you remember where Yeshua was born and lived with his parents before the family had to flee into the wilderness of Mitzrayim? That's right, he was born in Bethlehem, just as Micha said he would. Well, children, that is the end of our story for today. So we will see you next time for another exciting journey in the life of Yeshua. Shalom.
The former things will one day pass away. Our eyes will see the one we've known by faith. So come, Yeshua, come. Come, reign over us. Hear the longing of your bride as we